Well, hello, I'm Mark Hopkins. I lead King's Church in Nottingham. I'm also part of the ground level team, and I'm with Jonas. And do you want to say who you are?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jonas. I'm the location pastor of Alive Grantham, but also part of the lead team across the whole of Alive Church.
And together we're also part of the Leadership Engine, a leadership training program ground level runs. But we're just going to talk for a little bit about how we might recognize leaders, how we might help leaders come through, and some of the problems we might face. So Jonas, you've been in leadership now quite a number of years.
Yep.
And therefore you've probably brought through a lot of people into leadership. What are you looking for in a emerging leader?
Yeah, I think for me it always starts with character. It always starts with who someone is before what they can do. So I'm always looking for how they love people and serve people, even without a position or a role.
Yep.
So I'll be looking at during a gathering or in a life group, or are they just good at loving people?
Yeah.
Do they genuinely have a heart for people, or they want it just to use their gift or get a profile or any sort of position?
Yep.
And so for me, it just starts with character. Do they love Jesus? Are they really a heart for Jesus and a heart for people? And then also the integrity. Authenticity is everything.
Yeah.
So is someone walking what they're saying? Is there a life that backs up what they're claiming to believe and the love they're claiming to have for Jesus?
Brilliant. I think also, I love that in terms of the character. I think that another one is chemistry. I think there's the 3 C's, aren't there? Character, chemistry, competence. But chemistry talks to me about how they connect with the vision of the church.
Yeah.
They get church.
Yeah.
And I think you're so right, aren't you? You want people that aren't looking to promote themselves, but are looking to see the church built.
Yeah.
I have a little phrase. Sometimes if people come in, they say, "I'm a worship leader. How can I serve?"
Yeah.
And that rings alarm bells in my head. Whereas
100%.
if someone comes in and says, "I want to serve," oh, by the way, I'm a worship leader, I think you've got it right. They understand what it is to serve the church, to serve the vision of the church.
Yeah.
But they also recognise a bit who they are.
Yeah.
So we've got the character, the chemistry as well.
And I think that's really important, because I think for me, everything flows from being part of the family. Everything flows from being part of the church family first. So I think if there isn't a heart of being part of the adventure, part of the life flow of what God's doing, then for me that would be a bit of a warning signal as well, in terms of, are they really in this for the right reasons?
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on what the role is, doesn't it? You know, if the role that you're looking to release someone into is of a leadership team or youth team or kids team, then for me that sort of ministry role needs a bit more earthing, a bit more foundation to it. And so I'd be really praying about that. I'd be praying, asking the Holy Spirit to speak to me about that. But I think there are roles that are open to everyone as well, you know, in terms of just serving, just practically serving, that you can release people in. But I think that, again, that heart, like you said, about, do they love people? Do they love the local church? Are they showing that week in, week out? Is really, really important.
And I suppose the 3rd C in that list is competence. And again, depending on the role, you know, in someone in terms of a worship lead, there needs to be some level of competence, ability to be able to do something. But do you think that is an easier thing to teach?
Yeah, I would always rather have a less gifted person who has the right character and heart than a very gifted person who hasn't got that character and heart.
Yeah.
So I would say with worship leading, for example, I will always look to who they are in the congregation rather than what they can do on a platform. So if they're not really leading worship and engaging in worship and loving, just adoring Jesus in worship,
when they're off the stage, they're not in front of the camera or off the stage or something.
So I think everyone can. We're all works in progress, aren't we? We're all getting trained, equipped, sort of sharpened up. So I think in that sense, absolutely, it can be taught. But I think that obviously with worship, there needs to be a basic level of competence. Otherwise, you get people like me playing the spoons up there and it will just be a disaster. So I think there is obviously multi-layers to it. But I think the heart, the character, the love for Jesus, the love for people is absolutely central.
That's brilliant. So how do we people watching, how do they spot someone? How do they help someone move forward? Do you do it as a call from the front? Do you do it as an individual? Is it something through prayer? How do you tend to spot the people?
Well, I think it'd be interesting to hear how you do it, Mark, as well. But I think in our context, because we've grown and grown numerically, it's harder for me now to sort of see everyone and know everyone, and it'll be the same for you in that sense. But I think for me, I'm really look to discerning mature Christians around already in the church. So there'll be certain people who I will go and talk to and say, who do you think, who do you see, who's God putting on your heart? I think that's a really helpful way of doing it. And then just giving people a go and creating an environment where it's grace drenched, where people can step in to serve, they can make mistakes, they can be on a journey of learning and growing and serving in an environment that they're not going to get kicked out if they mess it up. But as long as their heart is right, as long as they love, as long as they're up for this adventure, then let's go for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And yeah, we've as a local church, I think you can see people with leadership's potential anyway, because they're already leading in some respect in their own spheres. But we've created an environment where they can have a go.
Yeah.
And rather than giving someone a badge, you are now a leader. Come and journey with us. Come and be part of the team. Join the conversation. Start to carry weight. Seems to work better, and it seems to be in a way what Jesus did in terms of gathering the 12. He didn't pass all of his leadership into one. He gathered teams around and invested into those. I think we can have people and give them a chance to have a go.
Yeah, I think it's really good. And I think also, I don't know how you find it, but I think for me, the longer I'm in leadership, the more important it is for me to remember what it is to step in first into a leadership role. So someone right at the start of their leadership journey, and just remember those first moments where the people were so gracious towards me, and they still have to be, because I make loads of mistakes still. But just, that moment where you step into the role for the first time and people around you supported you, encouraged you, championed you. And just to create a space where people can just step in for the very first time without feeling a sense of, I've got to be at this point, which someone might be down 20 years further down the road. I think that's really important. Do you find that?
Because if you we've become more experienced, and you look around, you think, well, there's no one as experience, but actually we've got to remember where we started. And I don't want to go back to some of those early mistakes and muck ups, but and current ones as well. But that ability, to give people a bit of space. So, what are some of the problems? We could probably spend a long time talking about problems, I think one of the problems for probably some churches is there anyone? And I think sometimes we sometimes just equate emerging leaders with younger leaders, and we might say we haven't got younger people, but I think it can be someone of any age. I don't think it has to be a younger person. And I think we sometimes look, if we take the heart thing, we look too much for the skill. So we're doing the problem. That when David was being identified, we're looking around at the wrong person, rather than seeing and asking God, who are you calling out? Have you had any kind of problems in terms of or some of the issues you've encountered with releasing people into leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to say everyone will. You read the New Testament. Jesus didn't choose 12 perfect disciples, as we know, one betrayed him. Now Jesus knew that was going to happen, so it's not the same as for us. But I think they read New Testament with Paul, being let down by people, being left. In 2 Timothy, he talks, doesn't he, about everyone's deserted me and no one stood by my side, and Alexander the coppersmith did me great harm. And so I think it's just the basic reality that we're all going to get it wrong at times. And I think that takes the pressure off, because sometimes when you make a mistake and it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to, you can become so gutted that you think, I can't do that ever again. And I think one of the things about approaching mistakes is to recognize you will get it wrong at times. Please God, may not be very often, but the fact that you get it wrong does not mean you shouldn't step out again and take a risk again and trust people again. And I think that's one of the big lessons I've learned through making mistakes or pointing people too soon. I think for me, just knowing, actually, Jesus, I have made a big mistake here, but you are still with me. You're still for me.
Yeah.
You can use even my mistakes for your glory. So I think that's really important for me. I think that there's a number of things for me would be, I'm working now towards the principle, everyone who serves, I'd like to be in a life group. So they're on a discipleship journey. There's an accountability. There's a sense of being loved, supported, encouraged in a small group. And I think that just loving towards people, that you're asking them to serve from a place of receiving, but also there's a sense of, actually, we want to know where you're at with Jesus as well, and we want to be part of your journey with him as well. And so I think small groups are beautifully biblical, but also beautifully effective, which is the same thing. So I think those two things for me are the two biggest lessons.
I think a lesson for me is, as the leader, letting go and giving people the space to make mistakes, to grow, rather than micromanaging or trying to control or protect, which just seems to cause more and more problems.
So how have you journeyed that? How have you navigated that and moved on from that?
It's that sense of trusting people and trusting and creating an environment where people can fail and learn. And that fail is not a problem. It's a learning opportunity. We can grow from that. And then allowing, not micromanaging, so stepping back and giving real delegated authority. I want you to run this, it's yours, run it. And not running away or ignoring it, but not keeping, just change this, or and fiddling. I must admit, I end up fiddling too often. And so I've got to step back and trust the person and trust the process and allow them to grow in that. And that's I've got better at that.
Because I think it's really interesting, because I'm the other extreme, and this is another mistake, is that you release them so much that you're not actually making sure they're doing okay, and actually, are we equipping them to do the role? And so it's almost like the opposite. It's like, for me, it's like, well, I want to release you into this. And actually, sometimes I've released someone into that and maybe not had a close eye on what they were doing, to the point of saying, well, actually, maybe we need to help you in this, or we help you in that. So it's trying to get that balance, isn't it? It's that tension between that.
It is, but it's a brilliant journey, and I hope you've just enjoyed that little bit of a conversation. Look for people with character, look for people who've got the right chemistry, the connection. Look for people that have some competence, but that can be invested into. Create the space for people to serve and to grow, and then just be aware that mistakes will happen, but keep releasing people, keep releasing leaders. So Jonas, thank you, and God's blessing over you and your church and all that you're doing.
Thanks, Mark, and you.